This is the Business Storytelling Show with Christoph Trapp. Name a top 20 storytelling podcast and a top 5% podcast globally. Christoph chats with thought leaders and experts to share tips and tricks that can help you tell your company's stories better to drive business results. Available wherever you listen to podcasts, live streamed on major social media channels, and part of the DB&A television network, available on most U.S. television sets and streaming on Roku and Amazon Fire. Here's Christoph with today's episode. Let's go.
Let's go, business storytellers. Hey, how's everyone doing today? We want to talk about how do we balance substance and style. Is that just a different way of saying sizzle and steak? Maybe not. We will find out. But Wayne Mullins, he's actually the author of Full Circle Marketing. So I hope you check that out. And just a friendly reminder, we are live on Amazon. So everything you see around me, you can also get in the carousel. So if you're watching on TV or you're listening on Spotify, you actually can just search for Christoph Trapp on Amazon and you'll find all my previous live streams. The latest thing you may have noticed in my studio here is these sound panels behind me, and they make me sound better. And I also think they kind of look nice. So I just wanted to highlight them really quickly here. 12-pack, $27.19 right now. But once again, everything you see around me, my microphone, my chair, everything, Christoph Trapp on Amazon, if you are not watching on Amazon already. But let's get to today's guest. Let's find out, how do we balance visual style with substance? Welcome to the show, Wayne.
Hey, Christoph, thank you so much.
How are you? I forgot to mention that we fist bump when you come on the show. Give me a fist bump here. Nice to see you. And that is, I overlooked that on my checklist. My friends, if you do a podcast or a live stream, have a checklist. Don't just go on the top of your mind because you forget things. So, hey, really glad to have you on the show. Full Circle Marketing certainly is something we're all trying to go after. But let's talk about, how do we balance style and substance? And first of all, what is style and what is substance?
Yeah, great questions. I think, Christoph, we live in this world where we are enamored with beautiful things, right? If you look at social media channels right now, Instagram is all about visuals. It's about people sharing their lives in such a way that makes us want or long for those things. But at the end of the day, what we all know to be true is that even once we take the trip or we achieve the thing or acquire the thing, whatever it may be, that we're always still left wanting something more. There's something more that we're after, more that we're trying to pursue. And so when we think about this from a business perspective, I think what happens oftentimes with companies is that we are so focused on making things look and feel a certain way that there's not a lot of substance behind the actual thing. So when customers buy the things, we've built up so much hype, we've overpromised, if you will. And then when they get the actual product, they get the actual service, they're underwhelmed often. In other words, the experience or the product or service doesn't live up to what we've painted the picture of it as being. So I think those are the two ways I would look at approaching that from our business perspective, from a marketing perspective, is really understanding how do we balance those two things out.
It's an interesting topic, and I think the way I put that in an article I wrote years and years ago is the quickest career killer for a content marketer is to create content that brings people in, but it's for a product that frankly sucks, right? So how do we do that? Is it as simple? I don't want to say as simple as, it's not that simple, but is it as simple as working together as a company, working together with a product team, making sure you have, you actually can back it up, right? So if I say we're the bestest in the world on whatever it is we're selling, somebody at some point has to back it up. It's way easier for me to say that or even to show it, right, through beautiful visuals than actually back it up. So how do companies do that?
Sure. I think for entrepreneurs in the early days, right, we become so enamored with the thing that we're going to do, whether it's a product or whether it's a service. We love that thing. It is our passion. And that is why oftentimes we'll take such great risk to launch the business, to do the thing, whatever it is that we're going to do. But we also have to remember that Our love for the product, for the service, for the thing is enough to get us going. It's enough to get us into the ball game, if you will. But in order for us to stay in the ball game, to have a sustainable business, we have to actually provide things that customers love. So in other words, our love gets us going, but the customer's love is what is required to keep us in the game long term. And I think, it is really systemic in business. From a marketing perspective, we see, as you just alluded to, that we are often so short-sighted with our marketing efforts. We believe that all of our marketing should be designed to get people into our funnel, to get them to buy our stuff. Well, marketing, according to the way we love to define it, is simply this: your ability to attract and to keep a customer. And so the keeping part, you have to ask, what is the keeping part and why do we want to keep a customer? Well, it doesn't matter your business, your most effective salesperson for your company will always be the customers who have previously bought from you, if you have a great product, if you have great service. And so I think that is where we have to begin. We have to look systemically about our beliefs about marketing, our beliefs about service, and our love for the product versus finding things that actually solve legitimate problems that our customers are going to love.
It's interesting to think about it that way. Our love will get us started, but the love of the customer will keep us going. So very interesting to think about that. Tamika Carlton was on the show the other day, and she even made the case that we should stop talking about leads, because leads is too me focused, right? Leads is about what you mean to me and not what I mean to you. And I think she's going to have an uphill battle to have companies stop calling leads, right? Just looking at Salesforce. I mean, that's what they're called in Salesforce. So, but I do get her point, quite frankly, that it needs to be about the customer. But why do companies struggle with that so much? Why is it so much about me, the company, as opposed to, every time you should talk about it, and I've seen content teams do it, right? They say, why does our audience care about this, right? Any question I'm asking you, Wayne, I'm going to think in my head, even if it's subconsciously, why does anybody care about that question at this point? And why is that so hard for companies to do?
Yeah, I think, several factors I believe that get factored into why we become distracted, I think, is the real answer. And so we easily lose sight of the reason that we started. And often we start because we have a legitimate desire to solve a problem or to help someone reach a certain goal or product. I believe it was Earl Nightingale who once said that you can solve any problem in your business if you will spend 2 hours a day thinking about how to better serve your customers. And you fast forward to today. So Earl Nightingale, I don't remember when he passed away, but his works were of, I think, the 60s and 70s and maybe 80s. So it's from generation ago, a couple of generations back. You fast forward to today, and Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon, in one of his very first shareholder letters, he says, "The thing I love most about customers is they are divinely discontent." Divinely discontent. So in other words, he understands that his customers, the customers of Amazon, are always going to be discontent. They're always going to want more for less money. And so I think it's just a realignment around the fact that we exist, all business exists to serve customers, to help them either reach a goal or overcome a problem or obstacle. And although your question is a very deep question, there's so many different ways we could go with this. I think it also goes back to your mission, your vision, and your values. As much as those are cliche words, as much as those are things that in the early days of entrepreneurial and business life, we don't have time for those things, right? We're busy doing quote unquote real work. It's those core documents, those core elements that set the target, they set the tone, and they set the underlying culture that we are going to have in our organizations.
It's very interesting to me when you talk about we don't have time. And, the other day we had a show, actually yesterday, with Ayelet Fishbrook on productivity. And my first question was, what's productivity anyways? I don't create widgets. You know what I mean? I'm trying to drive content results, marketing results, really, if you roll it on up. Um, so just because I look busy, just because I am busy, just because I'm typing a lot, doesn't mean I'm getting anything done. Doesn't even mean I'm productive, right? I could be typing gobbledygook and nobody reads it, and it doesn't drive any conversions of any kind, whether it's a lead or a connection or a newsletter sign up or whatever. So I think the whole being busy thing is difficult, especially in the field we're in. How do leaders understand that? How do they understand what it actually means to be busy in the right way? Let's put it that way. I don't even know what other word to use.
Yeah, I would say, again, I would default back to, as cliche as the answer is, to vision. In other words, where are we going? What is the organization going to look like at some specific point in the future? We personally love to go out about 3 years in the future. Anything beyond that for us is a bit too far of a stretch based on kind of how things evolve in the marketing world. Anything less than 3 years for us is too short-sighted. So we go out about 3 years in the future and we say, what does our company look like? Who do we serve? How do we serve? What does it feel like to actually work here? What does it feel like to work with the client? What are our clients saying about us? So again, we're painting a very clear picture of where we want to be. And then the mission and the values come into play as well, right? For us with the team, if you don't have strong values, if values aren't ingrained into your culture, people are always going to default to their own personal values. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it can be if they're not in alignment with what you are trying to accomplish and where you're trying to go. And on that same note, what I would say is so many times that as leaders, as entrepreneurs, we have this document of values or a mission or a vision. And it's literally nothing more than a piece of paper that, or a document that sits on our computer somewhere. And here's the thing, a value is not a value until it costs you something. So Enron, classic example, but Enron, which no longer exists, one of their 6 core values was integrity. It was plastered on the foyer, the lobby of their corporate offices. You were to go back and kind of look at what happened, it would be very safe to say that they did not operate with integrity, right? And the reason for that is because it didn't cost them anything to have that value. In other words, they weren't willing to make sacrifices with time, with money, with resources to live out that particular value. So I know I kind of went around the question a little bit, but what I would say is that in order to ensure that we are using our time effectively and wisely, we have to be clear about what matters in the future. In other words, where are we heading towards, and what are the guideposts or the values that are going to ensure that we stay on the right path to get there?
Yeah, it's a very interesting topic, and certainly, I think the defaulting to your own value, that's an eye-opening statement, because that's truly what happens when it's not ingrained. And I've actually seen that happening, which sometimes it could be okay, but it's a crapshoot, right? Because you don't know what the people's values necessarily are. The second half of the show here, roughly a little less, let's dive into full circle marketing. What's full circle marketing? Why'd you write the book? How does it help people? But before you answer that question, Wayne, I'm just interested to know, Ugly Mug Marketing. What is that name about?
Yeah, despite popular belief, it's not named after me and my ugly mug. The name Ugly Mug Marketing actually is a play off of a quote from a gentleman of the name David Ogilvy. So David Ogilvy was the co-founder of an ad agency called Ogilvy and Mather. At one point, they were the largest in the world. Still today, they're one of the top 10 ad agencies in the world. And David Ogilvy had a quote within his offices, in other words, when he was talking to his team, that was this: I would much rather you show me an ad that's ugly and effective over one that's beautiful but isn't. And so the name Ugly Mug Marketing really is just a play off of that quote. In other words, we don't want to get distracted by just creating beautiful things or just attempting to win design awards or creative awards. Right? We want to stay focused on what matters most for our clients. And at the end of the day, that is results for them. So that is where ugly mug marketing comes from.
Makes sense to me. And, certainly creating something that's beautiful, that's always in the eye of the beholder anyways, right? So certainly we want things to look good, but if they don't drive any results, I mean, the example I keep going back to is Craigslist, which I haven't actually visited in probably years now, but that is not the most prettiest website, and it certainly has worked over the years. Let's talk about full circle marketing. What is full circle marketing? Why should people do it? And we'll go from there. Before we get there, though, just a friendly reminder: everything you see behind me, you can see in the Amazon store. Just scan the code in that corner up here. The sound bar, the sound panels, the microphone, the chair. By the way, if you ever use a gaming chair, you will never go back. Trust me, most comfortable thing ever. And I'm not even a gamer. Let's get into full circle marketing. What is it? Why did you write the book?
Yeah, I think so. The book stems from just our beliefs around marketing, what marketing is, and the way that we attempt to practice it, and the way we attempt to execute marketing on behalf of our clients. So the book really comes out of this idea of two things. Number one, that we're at the point in our agency where, unfortunately, we're unable, just based on our fee structure, to work with a lot of the smaller companies. And for me personally, those are the ones I really love to work with. I love watching the transformations that can take place in those early days. But I wanted to still be able to share and teach kind of the methodologies that we use. And so that's why I took the time to put the book together, to write the book. It really details the core methodologies that we use. What is full circle marketing? Full circle marketing is this whole idea that our definition across the board is often skewed and misaligned around marketing. Now, I mentioned it earlier. We define marketing as your ability to attract and to keep a customer. But we don't want to just keep a customer. We want to actually convert that customer into an evangelist for our company, a raving fan for our company. We live in a world where today, I believe the latest stats show that more than 6 billion people have one of these devices, right? A smartphone. And that means that within a matter of seconds, they have the ability to share their experience about our products, our services, our company with the entire world. And yet we as entrepreneurs, we as marketers, are not embracing that reality. We haven't leaned into it. We are still stuck in the whole idea of, I've got to dump more people into the top of the funnel. If I dump enough people into the top of the funnel, the math will work out. And eventually down here, I'll know my conversion rate, et cetera, et cetera. And yes, all of those things matter. But we're living in a world now where we have the ability to turn ordinary customers into sales teams for us with a little bit of intention and a little bit of effort. So the idea of full circle is just simply that. Our job as marketers should not end at the point of purchase. Our jobs as marketers should begin at the point of purchase as well. So yes, we're driving leads, we're driving all these other things into the funnel, if you will, and bringing people through the buying process. But if we don't continue after that, we have lost sight of the potential power that we have at our disposals and at our customers' fingertips.
So I've been thinking about that actually quite a bit. It's more of a bow tie funnel than a traditional marketing funnel. Just dump them in, and hopefully they'll stick around. But how do marketing teams work together with customer success in the case of B2B, or customer service in the case of B2C, or whatever you might call it? How do you kind of make sure there's alignment? I know you already talked about alignment, and I think we've all seen our fair share of misalignment. So how do you make that work especially once you get post-purchase?
Yeah, I think you have to own it, right? As marketers, we have to own the fact that marketing has changed. You speak to anyone in business, anyone in marketing, they will tell you marketing has drastically changed, especially even over the last maybe 10 years. And yet we are still attempting to just use technology to do things the way we've always done things. Right. So we can build funnels now with a few clicks. We can do emails that are automated, written by AI, all the other things. So we're using technology to do marketing in the ways we've always done marketing. And I would argue that it's actually becoming less effective because now it's easier for people to quote unquote market. So I think that it starts with you as a marketer, if that's your role, to understand that we have this opportunity to turn existing customers into evangelists. How are we, let's use our skills that we already have, right? As marketers, our ability to write copy, our ability to do design, our ability to think through psychological triggers, using social proof, using whatever all the things are in your toolkit to turn our existing customers into those evangelists. And I believe that it starts with this. It starts with what we would call a litmus test, an expectation litmus test. If you're the entrepreneur, this is your baby. Your business is your baby. And no one wants to believe that their baby is ugly. But until we actually face the brutal truth of, are we actually meeting expectations or are we not? We don't know if our baby's ugly or not. Bain and Company did this research study where they interviewed 4,000 small businesses across the United States. And they went to the owners and they said, from 1 to 5, 5 being phenomenal service, 1 being terrible service, what level of service do you provide for your customers? And over 80%, I think it was 82%, said that we provide level 5. In other words, we're phenomenal at delivering service to our customers. Well, Bain and Company, they're a smart research group, and they said something's not right with this stat, right? We have 82% of business owners who believe they're providing phenomenal service. That can't be right. So let's go to the customers. So they went back to those companies and they said, would you mind giving us the names of some customers that we could go survey and ask them this exact same question? Hey, we know you do business with XYZ company. How would you rate their service on this scale? 5 phenomenal, 1's terrible. Where do you rank them? And the results that came back, Christoph, were this. Only 8% of those customers ranked those companies as providing level 5 phenomenal service. So I believe that's where it starts for us as marketers and entrepreneurs. It's the reality check of, are we actually meeting expectations? Because if you're not able to at least meet expectations, you have zero chance of ever converting a customer into an evangelist.
Yeah, at least meeting expectations. That's like the bare minimum. The other thing I was just thinking about, as you mentioned, marketing has become easier and easier, and anybody can really do it. That doesn't mean anybody can do it really well. But what I was thinking about this morning, have you seen those TikTok, So let's start here. TikTok influencers. So what they have done, many of them, they moved exactly what they do on TikTok and moved it to Instagram, and it still works. So imagine what. So when people come to me and say, oh, the algorithms, all the algorithms are different. But these people are almost doing the same thing on different networks, and it still works. So whatever they're doing is we can learn from. And then get this is when I really start thinking about it, is then they take what they did on TikTok to YouTube, and it's still blowing up. So algorithm or not, they're doing something correct, and they're just moving it across platforms.
Yeah, I agree. And I think what you're alluding to here is understanding the difference between assets versus actions. I think so often as entrepreneurs, we look around and we see this all the time. Our best salesperson for our company is the competitor of the company who reached out to us. In other words, the company across the street, their competitor across town or down the road just got a new website. And so they look at their awful website, they look at it and they're like, man, this is terrible. We need a new website. Look at what our competitors did. So they call us and say, hey, we need a new website. But when we do that, when we look around, what we do is we compare the actions that other people are taking. And we think, if I just go do the same actions that they're doing, in other words, if I just go hop on Instagram or TikTok or wherever, and I make this type of video, that I'm going to be successful. And what we don't understand is we don't peel back the onion a layer or two, and we don't look and say, okay, what are the actual assets? What are the things that they are actually building? What are the structures that they have in place to ensure their success? And it all goes back to the example you just mentioned. Goes back to those people who have the viral hits, who become popular despite the algorithm. What they understand is they understand their audience. They understand their audience so well that they deliver the content in such a way that it resonates, it entertains, it enlightens, whatever it is that they do, it does that so well to their audience that they engage with that content.
Yeah, that's what it comes down to. It's just interesting to see that, and especially when people claim it doesn't work because of the algorithms. And certain algorithms change and we have to make sure we understand them. Wayne, really appreciate you coming on the show. Very insightful to learn about full circle marketing. The last 30 seconds here, tell us, who should reach out to you? What kind of companies do you like to work with? Who is the perfect client? And thanks again for coming on.
Thank you, Christoph. I've enjoyed our chat. And, we love to work with what we call growth-minded entrepreneurs. So growth-minded just simply means they're looking to grow, right? They're not happy with where they currently are. They're wanting to get to that next level. And I say entrepreneurial mindset, in other words, growth-minded entrepreneurs. We work with a lot of nonprofits, but in those nonprofits, it's often with the ones who have an entrepreneurial mindset. They're thinking outside the box. They're challenging the status quo. So if either of those two things describe you, we should definitely chat.
That's a wrap. Thanks for tuning in. Please rate and review our show on your favorite podcast channels. And don't forget to share this episode with your networks. We appreciate you. Until next time, let the best stories